Hello, I'm Elizabeth MacIntosh and this is Bo. She's training to be a support dog at Tyala Public School, and Bo is going to help me read a story called Dream Big Tassie, which is going to be published in a new anthology called Hot Diggety Dog, Tales from the Bark Side. Once upon a time there was an Australian terrier named Tassie. When he was just a hairy little fur ball, he looked like a Tasmanian devil. He was a family pet, a very good family pet, who lived near two farms. Every afternoon, Tassie waited at the front gate for the school bus. When Peter and Christy came home, they said, "Hello, Tassie," and patted him. Sometimes Tassie rubbed his head on their legs or crawled on his stomach for extra pats. The only times he missed the bus was when clocks changed for daylight saving and the sun wasn't so low in the sky. So for the next week, Tassie waited all day just to be sure. Sometimes Tassie bounced on the trampoline with Peter and Christy. Sometimes he bounced there by himself. "Oh, he's a wonderful pet," said Mum. Tassie knew he was a wonderful pet, loving and loyal. He knew he was a very good watchdog too, because he barked at the hens and pigeons that came too close to his kennel. But he didn't bark at the mailman, because Tassie knew the sound of his car engine. Sometimes during the day, Tassie watched the cattle dogs on the farm next door as they rounded up the cows and chased them into the yards. They were working dogs, but Tassie knew he could help the farmer too. Rounding up cows looked like fun. The more he watched, the more Tassie dreamed that he could be a cattle dog. Tassie practiced his cattle skills. He crawled on his stomach to track caterpillars and chase dragonflies. Tassie found soft toys flung underneath the wooden bench on the veranda. He used his nose to push the fluffy koala into a corner near the door, and then pushed the yellow elephant as well. Finally, he moved the floppy-eared rabbit. Tassie was very proud and barked loudly so that his family noticed his skills. "Oh, Tassie, you're so clever," said Mum. She raised her eyebrows and stared directly at Peter. And Christy, "I wonder who left those toys there." The children shrugged and looked away. Tassie found some of Peter's plastic toy cows in the garden. He picked one up, carried it across the veranda, and placed it beneath the kitchen window. Then he carried another and another until all the toys were in a neat pile. "Oh, Tassie, you're so clever," said Mum. She raised her eyebrows and stared directly at Peter. "I wonder who left those toys there." He shrugged and looked away. A red kelpie named Dugan lived on a nearby farm. He was a great cattle dog and a good friend to play with. Dugan was always escaping, so he was named after Tassie Dugan, a famous bank robber who was always escaping from jail. Perhaps Dugan could teach him how to be a cattle dog, but nearly every time Tassie wanted to visit him, Mrs. Goodenough's flock of pet sheep chased him. Tassie was chased so often he made a tunnel in the long grass under the wire fence. Once or twice he was zapped by the electric fence. Tassie often sneaked down to the creek. He slipped under the wooden garden fence and shot off down the hill, paused to bark at two ducks swimming on the dam, and bounded down to the banks of Bucka Bucka Creek. There he paused, then crept along the old dirt cattle track to the water's edge, where he sniffed among the reeds and chased water lizards. If Tassie was really quiet, which wasn't very often, he would watch a platypus in the pool upstream. Other times he tracked lizards through the dead leaves lying underneath the trees on the creek bank. And then, to practice his cattle skills, Tassie would circle the cows at a rapid pace. Mostly, the black Angus cows would lift their heads, stare, and keep eating. Sometimes a young cow protected her calf by charging Tassie and chasing him away. Sometimes it was the bull. Occasionally, all the cows would run after him because maybe Tassie was a threat, but probably not. At least these cattle didn't have any horns. But Tassie was brave and didn't want to give up. He knew he could be a cattle dog, he just had to practice more. When Dad was going to work on the neighbour's farm, Tassie jumped in the ute too. He wanted to be helpful, just like the farm dogs. When Dad climbed on the tractor and ploughed the soil or mulched the grass, Tassie followed up and down, up and down. When it was really hot, he would sit in the shade and watch the tractor go up and down, up and down. Sometimes Dad would stop and pat Tassie before returning to work. One day, as Tassie waited in the shade, he could see something in the thick ferns by the fence. What could it be? There, lying alone, curled in a ball, was a tiny black calf, the one called Rosie. But where was her mother? The only cows were far in the distance. So, what did Tassie do? Why, he slowly shepherded Rosie out of the undergrowth and up to the cattle yards. "You've found an abandoned calf," said Mum. "We'll have to feed her with a bottle." "Thanks, Tassie," said Dad and gave him a pat. "You're a real cattle dog." Tassie nodded his head as if to say, "I told you so," and crawled on his stomach to Peter and Christy for extra pats. Then Tassie went to sleep in the shade, dreaming of caterpillars, dragonflies, and being a real cattle dog.